Hello there everybody, how is it going and how have you been? I am Euclidean Squid, and we're back here in Duel Links about halfway through the return of the Epic Yami event. I apologize for it taking me a little bit long. He didn't want to spawn or cooperate the past couple of days, but I finally got him to show up at level 40 and I just left him alone for like half the day just so that I could record this. But in case you missed it, Epic Yami was it was an event that Konami held a few months ago. He was notoriously difficult, very easily could just swarm the field with Dark Magicians and other powerful spellcasters. His deck has been nerfed ever so slightly since the last time he showed up. However, he is still pretty difficult, and so we are going to be using a very nice farming deck that I actually found on a different website than usual. This one I found on Duel Links Meta. As usual, there will be a link down in the description below to take you to it if you want to see it for yourself. And the original recipe was posted by a user who goes by Jade Hex, and I have modified it slightly to be marginally cheaper. Actually, it might actually be a little bit more expensive, but more to the point, it's also just a little bit more adaptable in case Yami starts managing to wiggle free from the lock that this deck tries to put him in. Now, this deck's main strategy is pretty similar to any other Ojama farming deck. That is, ideally, you will have some combination of Ojama Black, Green, and Yellow in your hand, as well as a polymerization that you can use to fuse them into either Ojama Knight or Ojama King, and then you just hide behind your Knight or your King until it's the end of the duel, and you do the typical Gravekeeper's Vassal, Secret Pass to the Treasure's Union attack combination to do over 10,000 damage and win. Now, the strategy for this deck is slightly different, and I will get into that during the duel. However, you might be noticing the high amount of super rares and ultra rares. Well, the good news is that most of these are optional. In fact, I would say that the only required rare cards are going to be the 2 Union attacks, if you want to do over 10,000 damage. If you only have one, you can take it, but you'll only do 5,000. And then the 2 polymerizations. The 2 polymerizations are required simply because that's the only way you can get your fusion monsters out. And then the Union attacks are obviously for the final turn, where you try to get as many points as you can. All of the other super rares and ultra rares are optional. There are other cards you can substitute in that will do pretty much what they do for you. But these are nice because they do have answers to certain problems, or are just nice and flexible compared to the cheaper alternatives. So, to go through, King of the Swamp is an ultra rare. However, its only purpose in the deck is to either fish out a polymerization for you to use, or to act as a fusion substitute when you are creating one of your fusion monsters. And pardon me, there's a gnat flying in my face. Both of these effects can be found on other cards. Unfortunately, I think the polymerization searching is only on Fusion Sage, which is an ultra rare spell card. So that kind of sucks. However, if you are looking for other fusion substitutes, there are plenty of rares and normals, like Goddess with the Third Eye, Beast King of the Swamps, Mystical Sheep number 2, or something weird like that. There's plenty of fusion substitutes if that's what you need, and you don't happen to have King of the Swamp. He's only in here because it's a nice 2-for-1 deal that no other card really does. Likewise, the Ojama Blues, even though they are super rares, they're only here to speed up the duel. Specifically, when they're destroyed in battle, you can add 2 Ojama cards from your deck to your hand. You absolutely do not need these if you don't have any. Yeah, their only purpose is to search out more Ojamas to either fuse with or to just empty your deck and end the duel faster. If you don't have any, feel free to substitute in any of the other Ojamas, because the only other advantage that Blue provides is that you can use it as fusion material for Ojama Knight, because Knight only wants 2 Ojama monsters, whereas King specifically wants a green, a yellow, and a black. So that's all that Blue does. Again, if you don't have 3, you can easily sub in any other combination of black, green, and yellow, and you'll be fine. I'll get to the trap cards in a moment, but the ultra rares are also optional. Ojama King is not required. With 2 Knights and 2 Union attacks, you can still gather over 10,000 attack points and deal that damage to Yami and get your high duel assessment score. King is just here because he has a nice higher amount of defense points. It makes it slightly more difficult for Yami to try and get past it, but if you don't have any Kings, again, you don't have to worry about it. Not required at all. Although I'm pretty sure that in order to get a lot of these Ojamas, you have to at least get Chaz to show up at the gate, which I think typically requires you to unlock him. And when you unlock him, you get one copy of Ojama King for free. So you should have at least one lying around, but if you don't want to use it, you don't have to. So now we get to the trap cards. So the super rare is Necrofusion. This was not in the original recipe, I added it myself. This is a trap card that lets you fusion summon a monster from your extra deck by banishing fusion materials from your graveyard. This is 100% optional. If you do not have it, don't worry about it. You can swap in another Ojama if you want. The main reason I have it in my deck is just in case Yami manages to pull something sneaky when I have a Knight on the field, manages to get a Dark Magician down, and then blows it up with a Dark Magic attack spell card. The main point of Necrofusion is to let me create and basically perform an emergency fusion summon during his turn if I find myself out of monsters, and just block him off from attacking me if that rare situation should arise. I have never had to use Necrofusion, but it is nice having it around just as that emergency backup in case he manages to do something sneaky. Yeah, that's pretty much all it does. If you don't have it, you don't need it. I'm trying to think of what you could realistically substitute in for it other than Ojamas. I mean, there's this one weird spell card in the game called Last Day of Witch, which just destroys all spellcasters on the field. If you want to be a jerk to Yami, you could put that in your deck over this and just destroy his monster, but the main point is hopefully you will have created a Knight so early on in the duel that you don't have to worry about Dark Magician. The one exception is that Yami does carry a copy of Ancient Rolls, which lets him special summon a level 7 or higher normal monster, which Dark Magician counts. So there is that ever so tiny possibility that on the first turn of the duel, even with a Knight in play, he can still get a Dark Magician out. And if he does, then things can start to derail pretty quickly, and that's what Necrofusion is here to try and mitigate. And then this other trap card is also optional, even though it's just a normal. This is Disappear. You remove from play one card from your opponent's graveyard. The only instance you would ever really need Disappear is if a certain trap card called Magician Navigation finds its way into his graveyard. And that's only because under certain conditions he could use that trap card to negate one of your last turn cards like Secret Pass to the Treasures or one of the Union attacks and kind of sabotage the whole point of the deck. Now granted, that situation does require him to have a Dark Magician on the field before he can use that whole negating effect of the Magician Navigation trap card. But it's another one of those things where it's Disappears only here as a just-in-case option. Just on the off chance the AI manages to set this up somehow, I can just use Disappear to banish his trap card from play, and I don't have to worry about it on the last turn of the duel. Again, if you don't have these, I don't actually remember where you get them. Actually, I can check right now really quick. But yeah, if you don't have these, you don't need them. They're in this old Valkyrie's Rage box. Yeah. In fact, these things probably aren't even necessary for the deck, but the original recipe called for a second King of the Swamp and then a third Ojama of either black, green, or yellow. So I figured I might as well take those out. I've had really no problems fusion summoning, providing I get a good hand, that is. I mean, that doesn't sound all that impressive, but so far this deck has been like 4 for 5 against level 40 Epic Yamis, and that one failure is because my big fat finger missed the button to do restart and swap out my starting hand. So that one was just kind of a fluke, but anyway. Oh, there's also the field spell Ojama Country. That is also required, but it is just a normal or a rare or whatever it was, so it should be pretty easy to get your hands on that. And now let's take a look at some of Epic Yami's reward cards. So he does have a few new ones, and some of his old ones have disappeared. For example, there's something he has called, I want to say Master of Dark Illusion, but I don't think that's right. In fact, hold on just a tiny second here. I have his deck list pulled up on another page. Magician of Dark Illusion, that's what it's called. That was an ultra rare that he could drop the first time he showed up. He doesn't have it anymore. I don't know. I mean, it was a pretty powerful card, so it's kind of understandable why Konami took it out from his loot pool, if you want to call it that. But that is kind of unfortunate because now the only way to get it is, I think, through just certain random ticket events. Like, I don't know if a Karibo ticket can get you that, but anyway. Among his cards, he has a fairly bad normal monster. It's a Ancient Sorcerer, level 4 Dark Spellcaster, 1000 attack, 1300 defense. Not great. Griffor, level 4 Earth Beast, 1200 attack, 1500 defense. Not great. Excuse me. Mushroom Man, level 2 Earth Plant, 800 attack, 600 defense. Not great. Kanan the Swords Mistress, level 4 Earth Warrior, 1400 attack and defense. Not that great. But now we get to a good one. Aquamador, a level 4 Water Spellcaster, 1200 attack, 2000 defense. So, if you are looking for a more defensive spellcaster, this is pretty good. Doesn't have any sort of effect, but honestly, 2000 defense on a level 4 monster is pretty nice if you need something to just kind of wall off attacks for a little bit. Out of the rares and normals, this is definitely the only one that even has any sort of value to it, in my opinion. Next up, we have Dark Magic Expanded. I have 12 copies of this because they were actually in the lottery pool the last time a Duelist Chronicle event came around, and I happened to just get them constantly, even though I didn't need any. But Dark Magic Expanded is a quick play spell card that is pretty powerful. You apply these effects in sequence based on the number of Dark Magician and or Dark Magician girls on the field and in the graveyards. If there is one, then one Dark Spellcaster type monster on the field gains 1000 attack until the end of the turn. And because this is a quick play spell, you can just set it, and then if your opponent tries to attack, you can activate it kind of as a trap card and power up one of your spellcasters. Then, if there are two, this turn, your opponent cannot activate cards and effects in response to your spell trap card or effect activation, and spell trap cards you control cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. So in other words, if there are two Dark Magician or Dark Magician girls, your opponent cannot use anything in response to your spell trap cards, nor can they destroy your spell trap cards. And then finally, if there are three Dark Spellcaster type monsters you currently control are unaffected by all of your opponent's card effects until the end of the turn. So if by some miracle you get some combination of 3 Dark Magicians and Dark Magician girls into the graveyard, or on the field, or any combination, all of them become immune to your opponent card effects. Trap cards don't work, spell cards don't work, monsters don't work, nothing. So, very powerful spell card. More than likely only ever going to be really getting off this first effect, maybe the second. Third one seems pretty rare. But moving on, this is actually another one of his new cards. The legendary Exodia Incarnate. Level 10 Dark Spellcaster, unknown attack and 0 defense. Very weird card. It cannot be normal summoned or set. It must be special summoned from your hand by tributing one Forbidden One monster, and cannot be special summoned by other ways. In case you are wondering, a Forbidden One monster are basically the 5 pieces of Exodia. So it's right arm, right leg, left leg, and then Exodia the Forbidden One. So you effectively have to play one of those, tribute it to special summon Legendary Exodia Incarnate. And then even odder, this card gains 1000 attack for each Forbidden One monster in your graveyard. So it gets more powerful if you throw your Forbidden One cards away, but the weird thing is that the only way to get Forbidden One cards in your deck in the first place is to use regular Yugimoto's Grandpa's Card skill, which just adds like 1 copy of each of the 5 pieces to your deck. So it just seems weird that a card that can only work with one character is rewarded to you by a different character, if that makes sense. Anyway, continuing on with this thing, it is unaffected by all other card effects, so that includes both your cards and your opponent's cards. Having trouble talking. However, once per turn, during your end phase, you have to add 1 Forbidden One monster from your graveyard to your hand. And when this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can reveal any number of Forbidden One monsters in your hand, and if you do, draw 1 card for each. So, I guess the further point I'm getting at with Exodia Incarnate is that I don't really understand how you're supposed to use it, because it's not quite like the this old Exodia Necros card, which wants the Forbidden One pieces in the graveyard. Because this thing does, but it constantly gives them back to you every turn, and then makes itself weaker in the process. I guess the idea there is that you get a big scary monster to attack for a while, but then it recovers Forbidden One pieces for you in the gamble that when it's destroyed, you draw the last ones you need to then win? Question mark? I don't know, it just seems very, very counterintuitive how it wants stuff in the graveyard, but removes stuff from the graveyard, and searches for them, but doesn't help you send them to the graveyard. It's an awkward card, and I just don't really understand how to use it. Moving on, Charging Gaia the Fierce Knight, level 7 Light Warrior, 2300 attack, 2100 defense. You can normal summon this card without tributing. If this card is normal summoned without tributing, its original attack becomes 1900, which is still honestly pretty damn good. And if this card is tributed, you can add one Blackluster Soldier monster from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect of Charging Gaia the Fierce Knight once per turn. That could be any Blackluster Soldier. It doesn't have to be the ritual monster, it could be one of the effect monsters that were introduced as later parts to the set, so like Blackluster Soldier, what is it? Envoy of Twilight, or whatever that special ultra rare one you can buy from the card trader is. Charging Gaia will let you search out for that one, so that's pretty cool. Then we have Crusader of Endymion, level 4 light spellcaster, 1900 attack, 1200 defense, and it is a Gemini monster. So once it is on the field, you can normal summon it again, and it gains its effect, where once per turn, you can place one spell counter on a face-up card on the field that you can place a spell counter on. And if you do, this card gains 600 attack until the end phase. Now, note that Crusader of Endymion itself cannot support spell counters. You will need another card to put spell counters on, but powering it up to a 2500 monster on your turn is still pretty good, and even if you don't want to use it in a spell counter deck, it's still a 1900 attack point spellcaster. There are plenty of spellcaster support cards that this thing would love to work with as well. And then finally, Epic Yami's current only ultra rare is Archfiend Commander. Level 6 Dark Fiend, 2500 attack, 1200 defense. If you control an Archfiend card, you can special summon this card from your hand, however it cannot attack this turn. You can only special summon Archfiend Commander once per turn this way, and when special summoned this way, you target an Archfiend card you control and destroy that target. When this card is tribute summoned, you can target one level 6 Archfiend monster in your graveyard, special summon that target in face-up defense position. So, here's the basic thing that I'm reading. If you have another Archfiend, you can special summon this thing, but you then have to either destroy Commander or that other Archfiend, which could be good, could be bad. You are giving up your attack that turn if you decide to special summon Commander that way, however. But if I'm understanding its second effect correctly, once it's been tribute summoned, it's already going to be in the graveyard. Therefore, I think you might be able to target Commander with its own special summoning effect and then just immediately revive it back out of the graveyard? I think. So in other words, like, you tribute it for, say, Dark Magician Girl, just picking something at random here. Archfiend Commander goes to the graveyard, the summoning finishes, Commander's effect goes off, and then you get to target a level 6 Archfiend, which this thing is, and it doesn't say you can't target itself. So, yeah, I guess you can summon it back. Although it does special summon back in defense position, and it only has 1200 defense, so maybe not the best target, but anyway. That's all of Yami Yugi's new, or current, reward drops. So let's go ahead and have ourselves an example duel. Pardon me as I take a drink. Let's see here. Alright, I'm kind of okay with going second. We will see. What's my starting hand like? That is a very bad starting hand. I will happily throw it back. Please give me a better one. Much better. Much better. Can't draw due to restart. Doesn't matter, because I can now use polymerization. Let's go ahead and summon the Glossy Knight for a few extra points at the end. We will fuse green and yellow, so that I can then set blue and let Yami attack it and start milling cards out of my deck. And this is also part of why you want to fuse for Knight and King specifically, is that they have effects that say when they are fusion summoned, you can target some of your opponent's monster zones and lock them off, so your opponent cannot use them. So right now, there's no way for Yami-Yugi to summon his Dark Magician. It needs 2 tributes, but he cannot have 2 monsters in play at the same time, and his only usable slot is currently occupied. He has no way of destroying his own monsters. He is completely and utterly unable to summon Dark Magician. The catch here is that you don't attack whatever this monster is that's in the middle of his field. Doesn't matter if you can manage it and deal some damage. Don't do it, because like I mentioned during the deck review, he does have ancient rules, and that could show up at any time to put a Dark Magician down. And you do not want him to have a Dark Magician. He has so many spell cards that work with Dark Magician. Just don't let him get it. And to that end, when you draw Ojama Country, which is a field spell that says while you control... In fact, here. While you control a face-up Ojama monster, switch the original attack and defense of all monsters on the field. You don't have to worry about the first effect. All that does is help you special summon Ojamas from the graveyard. That can revive your fusion summons. I don't know if that gets you the field blocking effects. I'll double check the fusion effect in a moment, but the main point is you'll want this attack and defense flip so that your Knights and or Kings go from having 0 attack to 2500 or 3000 attack. However, one important thing to say is do not play Ojama Country until the end of the duel. It can be very tempting to use it early, and so like I'd use it, Knight would go up to 2500 attack, and then I could just put Knight in attack mode and leave him there, and it would kind of be the same effect, except Epic Yami actually has a card that he can discard from his hand to give any Dark Spellcaster like 2000 extra attack or something. So if you do that, Epic Yami will, if possibly, find a way to punch through. And this is the weird thing with his AI, is that he never seems to want to do it while you have your Ojamas in defense mode. So just leaving him in defense mode is like the perfect way, because his AI just never wants to attack and destroy it, even if he could. I don't get why, but that's how he behaves. So, after that little explanation, let's go ahead, discard our King of the Swamps, find and use a polymerization. Let's go ahead and create a King this time. Actually, yeah, looking at the wording, I think it just, their effect goes off as soon as they hit the field, so... In theory, you could use Ojama Country to revive a fusion monster from your graveyard if you need to. However, again, having it face up on the field would possibly trigger Epic Yami's AI into using that one card that gives his monsters 2000 attack. Now in this case he can't, because he has to target a Dark Spellcaster, and Crusader of Endymion is a Light Spellcaster. So in this situation it's fine for me to play Ojama Country, but I'm not going to, because that's a bad habit that I don't want to get into. But yeah, more to the point, once you get one of your Ojamas in defense mode, just leave it there and he can't do anything. It's actually quite nice. Especially compared to the last time he was around, where it seems like he would just break out at any given moment. I'm going to go ahead and set Necrofusion, even though I don't see myself ever having to use it. Don't have to activate Disappear. And yeah, just like that, the farming duel is already over. Oh, he's tributing for Dark Magician Girl. Okay, why? Huh. For a second, I thought he was going... Like, he did that to get a Dark Spellcaster, so he could then use the card that powers up a Dark Spellcaster, but then he didn't, so... I don't know. Maybe his AI is trying to go for a deck out win? More to the point, I'm going to troll him a little bit by using Disappear on his Dark Magician. Next, we go ahead and use Ajama Country. Change our Knight and our King into attack mode, so Vassal gets a power boost. Then actually summon Vassal. Secret Pass. Union attack. And Union attack. Then we just go battle phase. Vassal goes to 11,500. Direct attack for the win. And there you go. This Ajama deck, like I said, as long as you can get a fusion off within like the first turn or two of the duel, you're pretty much set. If it takes any longer than that, it's very likely that Yami will eventually summon Dark Magician and then you lose. But that's kind of why this deck is meant to use Restart. The nice thing is that I think Bandit Keith gets Restart pretty early on in the level up, so as long as you have him unlocked, you should be able to get your hands on it pretty darn quickly. But, yeah, that's pretty much all there is to say about the Epic Yami event. Best of luck with farming. Hope this works out for you. And again, I hope that the high amount of super rare and ultra rare cards didn't scare you off, because as you saw in the duel, a lot of them weren't really needed. Like, sure, I used all 3 blues, but again, all that it did was speed up my draws. If you wanted to, you could just swap out the blues with something like a Jar of Greed, and sure, that's slightly less draw power. It's 3 cards instead of 6, but same thing. Yami doesn't have any cards to let him draw faster, so, you know, you'll still get ahead on cards and finish before he does. So yeah, that was the Epic Yami event. Best of luck farming him, and thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all had a great time, and I hope you all have a great day. And I will see you all in the next one.